Good morning. It's Pause with Elizabeth Eleanor, and today we're talking about conflict and being intuitively connected while you're dealing with conflict, which is a really interesting topic, right? Because how do you stay connected to your higher self, connected to your intuition when you're being triggered? Or somebody else is being triggered. I am just going to check to see to make sure that I'm on and doing the thing. Yes, I am. And so, first of all, how are you and how's your life going with all the stuff going on in the world at the moment? I would love for you to say hi and let me know in the chat what's going on and how you're feeling today. And let's talk about it, right? If you're watching the replay, hashtag replay, let us know you're here so we can come in and say hi and give you a big love heart and all the things, right? Stay connected as much as we possibly can in this internet thing, right? In this sort of half connected, half not connected. So how do you deal with conflict and how do you stay connected? It's a really interesting topic, and I'd love for you to chat, put in the chat, do you find this hard to do? Because when we're triggered with something's going on in our life, what happens in that conflict is we naturally go into what our unconscious wants us to do, right? We naturally go into our old patterns where we may get aggressive, like if that's worked for us before, like when you power over, or we might feel powerless and hate conflict. Who was brought up? Good morning, Gail. Lovely to have you here. Who was brought up to be fearful of conflict and to hide from it? I'd love to know in the chat if that was you, because I know that that's what happened with me. When there was stuff going on in the family, Mum would I would be sent to my room because I was the youngest, and my brothers were 6 and 7 years older than me. And so, when they were teenagers, I was still this little kid. And so they were pretty aggressive, angry boys. My dad was on a kidney machine, and so just as they were turning into adults and wanting their father to give them an example of being a strong man, he got sick. And so you can imagine, as men growing up, or young boys growing up that wanted some guidance and structure and some boundaries, that didn't happen, so they lashed out. And so I was raised to hide from conflict. And through that process, hey Vanessa, lovely to have you here too. I'm not getting the comments on the chat here, but anyway, through that, what happens is, right, that now becomes a pattern of behavior. So when there was conflict in my life, I would shut down. My whole body would shut down. And when your body shuts down, you can't access your intuition. When you go into that unconscious pattern, and maybe for you it was lashing out, right? I get passive aggressive, yes, avoided conflict because once you have a fight with someone, the relationship was over. Yeah. And so, it's like take off, right? And so in that process, accessing that higher part of yourself, that wisdom, is actually really it's non-existent, because now you're in the old memories. Now you're in the lower part of yourself. You're in your identity, and it's taken over the show. And while it's taken over the show, there's no way that you can even rationalize. There's no way of opening your crown chakra, listening to your heart, expressing yourself from your wisdom. It's non-existent, right? So how do you do it? How do you move into that space? So first of all, is being a little bit gentle with yourself, right? Knowing that this is just something that's been a pattern and has been a habit, and being able to be okay with it and give yourself some grace, right? Because so just being okay with, okay, this is the way I behave, and it's something from my childhood. It's something that has been conditioned into me. You know, I've programmed myself in this way to express this way, right? We just had a young kid staying with us for a little while that was coming back and stopped on the way to Melbourne, and he so reminds me of me at that age. He's in his 20s, maybe his mid-20 or something. I didn't ask him his age. A young Irish fellow, and he's just full of love and light and just buoyant, you know, and totally innocent, beautiful, like just so refreshing to be around. And he was sharing with me how he lives with, so he's a backpacker, and he lives with 4 other backpackers in this house when he goes back to Melbourne, and they're all very unconscious, right? So he's right into growth, wants to explore, wants to know more about himself, and you know, right up there, listening and absorbing everything. And here he is sitting with all these muggles, and one of the women he had a thing for, he used to have a thing for, but one of her responses when she gets defensive or things aren't going her way is she gets aggressive, right? And she shouts and she yells and she pretty much chucks a tantrum. Well, through his life, we you know, had to talk about it, and through his life he has gone into recluse, right? So he has gone into that space of shutting down. He doesn't know how to cope with it, and so he goes into his shell. And so therefore he cannot, he goes into powerless, and she has powered over, right? So now you've got this conflict, and when you're in that place, you can't find yourself to recognize your higher self. And so first of all, you want to work on yourself before you go into conflict. Trying to work on this pattern of behavior while you're in the conflict just doesn't work. It's trying to, you know, fly when you're stuck in the mud, right? Is not something that, I mean, yes, potentially you could do it, but in the moment, you're better off actually working on those patterns before you get into that space. So I was talking to Michael and saying, wouldn't it be a beautiful place when you can let go of the trauma and hiding, right, from your childhood, to be able to stand in your sovereignty, right, to be in this place of empowerment while someone is carrying on like pork chop, right, as I said to him, someone's carrying on and have no reaction whatsoever, so that you can just observe. And I've had that experience where I've had someone in my face losing it, because it's a form of powerlessness. When someone is being aggressive and trying to power over you, it actually is powerless, because they're not in control of their emotions, they're not in control of their behaviors, and so they're lashing out and they're victimized. They're doing their best. You know, narcissists are really good at this, right? This victimizing you for their behavior. So they are doing what works for them and what has worked for them to hold you accountable to what's going on wrong for them, right? Now, let's step out of this for a moment and recognize ourselves as sovereign beings and creators. When you're in that place of, I'm choosing to create my reality, you can see this as an experience, and you can stand there I let someone and allow someone to go off and carry on. And when you're not reacting to them, when you're in a place where you're not responding, the energy no longer is able to grab hold of you. And so it's going crazy like this, like energetically, they're exuding all this energy towards you. But if it's not being absorbed and they're not getting that same reaction, it will start dissipating. And can you imagine being in the place where you're standing there with someone carrying on like that and then asking them, did that work? Did that feel good? Are you feeling better? Do you want to talk about it? Like, when you can dissipate the energy and hold yourself in neutrality, that's when you can really start making some progress in a conflicting situation. When holding the space for someone to allow them to move into that place. I'm just going to read what Judy said here. I couldn't show anger as would be punished by parents. Now I don't handle any confrontation at all well. Because of the way, these are the patterns, right? How do you do that without feeling like you are in freeze mode? Well, this is the thing, right? Because we are emotional beings, and so when someone is behaving this way, where there's conflict, what happens is we naturally go into reaction instead of response. So let's back up a bit, and we're all in a place right now where we can observe this outside of the conflict, right? No one is having conflict right now. Someone's yelling at them in the background. Everyone is just here present with me. Can you give me a thumbs up if that's the case, or a love heart? That's the love heart, isn't it? We're all present and outside of that conflict right this moment, right? So let's pause for a moment. And as some of you have just shared, this is patterns of behavior from your childhood, right? So this is stuff that's come up before, and it is a historical moment in time that you behaved this way because it was safe for you. You needed to survive, right? So here you are as a little kid, and you needed to survive, so you needed to retreat, or you needed to freeze, right? Whatever it was. It's allowing that little kid to know that that was a good thing for you at the time because it worked. Because you're still here, you're still you're still alive, right? So let's just acknowledge that little girl who had that moment and let her know that she's safe, right? That's the first thing. Allowing her to not be wrong for making that decision to step into that way of being. The next step is recognizing that you don't need to be in that anymore. You don't need to be behaving that way in the same format. You're now growing up, you're an adult, and now you can behave a different way. So the first thing is recognizing your intuition and connecting in with that, right? Being able to sit in the frequency of, I am a higher being, I am a creator, I am a magical woman, and through that process, stepping in and connecting in with your higher self. So now you've got that access through your crown chakra. By clearing the stuff out of the way before you get into the conflict, then you can sit in your sovereignty. That's when you can listen to the guidance that's coming through, right? And it's very different to freeze mode, as Vanessa was asking here. Freeze mode is, again, another survival response. So it's very different to being an observer. When all of those triggers are out of your nervous system and your emotional body, that's when you can observe and be disconnected to the person that is being abusive in some form or other in front of you, right? And it takes a bit of work on yourself. It takes time to recognize those patterns and to shift them out of your nervous system. Because what happens is, when we find ourselves in the same situation, right? Same experience, different face, maybe, or the same face because you're in a relationship with someone. What happens is, as soon as you energetically feel it, because we're all energy beings first, as soon as you energetically feel it, and I will say that you know, anyone that's on here that's saying about freeze or retreat, you become hyper vigilant to your surroundings. So you energetically feel the conflict coming. It's brewing. Let me know in the chat if I'm right, that you feel it brewing before any words or body language are even spoken. So we become hyper vigilant to our environment, right? To your environment. And so you can feel when it's coming. And in those microseconds, your body starts reacting before you have the time to even process it with your mind. So it's all about changing that pattern and that behavior. So some of the things that you can do is to change the way, like recognize that this is a pattern, and then change your behavior. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to start breathing, right? Now, I've got to share with you, with all the spiritual stuff that I do, with all the, you know, energy work and all of those things, I'm a really grounded, normal person. And that's been this inner conflict that I'm totally fine with now, but I used to have a big problem with it, you know, like I wanted to be a muggle, but I just was a wizard. Like it was just something that I didn't mean to happen, but it was just who I am. And I tried desperately to be a muggle, and it just didn't work, right? So now I'm better at being a wizard or magical woman in the world, and everyone's just going to have to deal with it. So I used to not like people talking about breath work because I was like, you know, that's boring. Why would you want to do that? You know, like it sounds too easy and simple. And so just didn't do it. But one of the things I recognized as I've progressed in my own spiritual journey and my own personal development is that when I was going through a process and growing and expanding and releasing things that didn't serve me anymore, I'd watch my body take a breath in through my nose and breathe out. And I want you to do it right now for me. Take a nice deep breath in through your nose and breathe out. And notice that I'm not just breathing out normally, I'm breathing out with noise, right? I'm going, because as I'm doing that, it's giving my body a moment to pause. It's taking a step back from the situation. It's allowing everything to change its frequency and to reset. So let's just do it again. Take a nice deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. What happens is, if you're starting to feel hypervigilant, right, in a situation, where you're concerned about your safety. Your nervous system is going into safety mode. You're feeling, a wobble. When you pause for a moment and take that breath in and out, your spirit that was just about to take off and leave the body, because that's what it normally does in those situations, your spirit then has a moment to come back in. Now what happens in that moment is now you've got access to your intuition if you choose to take it, right? Because when your spirit is half in and half out, you can't access your own wisdom. You're only accessing the body memory, the nervous system, the emotional body that knows these patterns of behavior and these repetitive actions, right? And so your spirit has gone, I'm out of here. This is not fun, I'm leaving. Who understands what I'm saying? Who recognizes? I'd love for you to put in the chat. Just take a moment to be aware of this. Just to remember the last time you were in conflict. Can you feel that? Like when you're in conflict, right? You like that feeling of reaction, and your spirit leaves. You can't access all the wisdom that you need because your body takes over. So now, taking that breath, that opportunity to breathe, you're allowing your body to slowly relax, and your spirit can go, okay, that feels more like home. I'm prepared to come back in, and I'm going to take a moment to be able to connect again, right? You can do that breath even when someone's in front of you. Tell me in the chat, who was the last person in your life to have that sort of experience with? It might have been your boss. It could have been your partner. It could have been a kid. It could have been, a friend. Whoever it was, I want you to take a moment and recognize that you can go back into that moment, because what happens is your body goes naturally back into the response. Go back into the moment and breathe it out. So breathe through your nose and breathe out through your mouth. And just come back into your body, right? And just observe the situation. Because when you can be in your intuition in the middle of conflict, then you can access, and let me just make it clear, you have full permission to pause. To pause for a moment, to gather your thoughts, and when you're in your sovereignty, or what I call the empowered woman, right? In my Awaken the Lioness course, I talk about the three powers, right? Power, powerless, and empowerment. And power and powerless is when you are in duality, where you've got this give and take, right? But empowerment is when you are in your sovereignty, when you're being the magical woman, and your energy field is very full of yourself, right? Full of your energy. When you're in that space, regardless of what's going on outside you in your environment, it can't infiltrate your space. So now, I've noticed my breathing goes really shallow when triggered. I get anticipation of conflict when meeting my son. Yeah. When you're in your sovereignty, right? And Judy, try this process next time, even in the lead up to going and seeing him in the car, on the phone, whatever it might be, take a moment to start moving into the breath work, right? Breathing. This is what I call breath one. Just breathing in through your nose and breathing out through your mouth. The other part of this is safety, right? Allowing your body to know that you're safe and that you're in control. So taking those moments, those little steps, are going to slowly start chipping away. When you can be in that place where you are not affected by the conflict that's in front of you, what happens is it starts to neutralize, because that person that's in front of you is trying to keep you in power and powerless. So it's trying to power over you so that you're powerless, right? Think of it as energy. When you're empowered, it's down here and it's like, why isn't it working? And eventually it starts to dissipate, right? Or if someone is in such angst, so much pain, so much trauma, and this is the only way they know how to deal with it, then being okay to still breathe, still relax, but stay in your sovereignty, and to go into the space of, this is really uncomfortable and I'm not enjoying this at all. I'm going to take myself out of this situation because I don't feel safe around you. And when you're ready to start controlling yourself, that's when I'm going to come back, but not beforehand, right? Now, I just want to premise this with, if you are in an abusive relationship where your physical body is, or somebody else's physical body is threatened, then I am no psychologist, no counselor. I am talking about energy and how to deal with energy. If you're in a situation, please go and seek help. Please ask for support by people that are qualified for that, right? Because I am not here to give you advice in that situation. What I am here to say is that you can make a choice to be in a different situation, and you have the ability to seek help and get support so that you then can take yourself out of that situation, right? Let's see what... They may not be doing that intentionally. They could have a trauma past. You just answered what I was going to say. Yeah, Vanessa. It's the very thing, right? I've got to just share with you, anyone that's carrying on like a pork chop and being crazy like that and aggressive, they are dealing from their trauma. They are not coming from their higher self. They are not coming from their sovereign being. They are not coming from their love and light. They are coming from their trauma. They're coming from their identity. Every single person that is aggressive in some form or another is coming from that place because they're holding on to their own pain. So that is another aspect of this, is to be able to, hey, I can, you don't have to necessarily say it, but to understand that someone else in front of you is in pain, right? So this is all about staying in your sovereignty and being able to release the conflict prior, and release the trauma and the triggers prior to the situation, so that you then can step into the place of being in your higher self and then being guided by your intuition as to how to deal with the situation that's at hand, right? Because when you're connected to your higher self will always hold you in a space of feeling safe, right? You can assist others to reprogram their misdirected energies. Yes, yes. If they're open and willing to it, Annie, right? They've got to be open and willing to go there. We have our monthly mixer this month called Be in Your Own Dream, right? Something like that. I can't even remember. I'm in the frequency. Is all about living your own authentic life and not being influenced by the people that are trying to control you, right? Because we're talking right now about major conflict, but then we've got on top of that the subtle persuasion, the gentle manipulation, the coercion of trying to get you to be someone that you don't necessarily want to be, and it can be very, very subtle. And so next thing, we're living somebody else's dream, we're living in somebody else's reality, and we're not in our own space holding our own vision and our own dream. So if you're interested in finding out more about our event that's coming up this month, then just put dream in the chat. We're going to talk more about this, right? Holding our own space so that we can live in our own vision and our own dream without the influences of other people. So Belong to Your Own Dream is on October the 23rd. Thank you, Irene. Let me just see. That's my question to myself. If I witness this behavior, what's going on for this person right now? It totally changes my energy towards them to love and concern. Absolutely. Breathing in, breathing out, right? And just allowing yourself to separate yourself from the conflict and allow your higher self to come in and give you the wisdom of how to deal with it in the moment, right? Much love to all of you. Take care, and we'll catch you on our monthly mixer.